this is a special episode of Fredosophy. I think it's the fifth one. It's been a while since I had the last one, but a week ago, I was an inspiration hit me when I heard the interview with this man I'm about to interview. It was on a Guru Vikings podcast. I'm here today with Morgan O. Smith, who I think is based in Canada. And the reason why I really wanted to talk to Morgan is that there were so many similarities between his story and my story. It's just that his story has ended and mine hasn't. But we will at least cover some commonalities and some fellow interests, go through his story, how his experience is now. The striking similarity between me and Morgan is that we both have comedy backgrounds. So, but he's been a stand-up comedy. I don't have so much stand-up comedy experience, but yeah, the spiritual path.
You've done that, right?
Sorry?
You've done all those comedic stunts and things of that sort, right?
Yes, there were pranks. I call them pranks, or
pranks, right?
Yeah, social stunts, hidden camera gags. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But the big dream was, there's been some dream that hasn't gotten a whole lot of attention, and that was to be a comic, stand-up comic. So yeah, and then the spiritual interest took over
right?
Years in, and yeah. So can you first tell us how you how did you get into comedy, and then how did spirituality take over the show for you?
How did I get into comedy? That's a very, very long story, but comedy was just something that I at some point I watched a lot of stand-up comedy on TV with my former roommate years ago. We're going back like almost 30 years ago, and I always said, that it's something that I would like to try. I mean, just something I said loosely in my mind. It's something I would like to try. But I wanted to go into acting. So I was going around trying to find an agent and doing the odd audition here and there. And then I ran into an agent, a booking agent, and he asked me what's my background in acting? And I didn't have much of a background in acting except for like school plays and things like that sort. So I just said, "Oh, I'm a stand-up comic." And he goes, "Oh gosh, that's great. I got to come see you one day." And I was like, "Oh gosh," and that kind of put the pressure on me. So I went home and started trying to write material, and then I started calling up the local comedy club in my area. Well, not in my area, but in my city. And after about 4 or 5 weeks, probably 5, 6 weeks or something like that, I got a spot on amateur night, and that's when I started. And so it went off from there, and I went and did my first spot ever on amateur night. And then and everything kind of came together eventually. I did amateur night for about 2.5 years, went up to the pro level. But while I was still doing amateur night, I was doing a TV show. I started doing a TV show, but at that time it was a cable access. So it was something that we did for free. We grabbed the camera, did some crazy stuff on the street, and eventually it got really, really popular. It created a cult following. And then one thing led to another, and it got picked up by a Canadian network, by a major network. And then we became pretty much national TV celebrities. So I was doing that, shooting the show, and also doing stand-up. I've only did stand-up for 12 years. So out of those 12 years, I did TV for nine of those years and all that. So yeah. So I'm more known for what I've done on TV than I've done for stand-up within stand-up. But I did stand-up for about 12 years, and within that period of time, I did TV for 9 years, and that's what I'm mostly known for in Canada.
You did a few shows a week or something? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And the TV
sometimes
show
every
was
day.
called Buzz, right?
It was called Buzz, yeah.
Yeah.
But I tried to
Yeah.
do stand as much as I could, every week, sometimes every day, sometimes more than one show per day, because we only shot the show 4 months out of the year, so the rest of the time was in editing and things of that sort. So I wouldn't shoot that, I wouldn't do stand up that much our tapings, unless there was time to squeeze in a spot. But after we finished our 4 months of taping, I'd go back and do stand up and all that type of stuff, and auditions, going on auditions and doing getting the odd role here and there and things of that sort.
Mm. And another commonality we had was that the Howie Mandel showed up on our
Oh
comedy
yeah,
paths. Mm.
Howie Mandel. Yeah, actually, my second time of ever doing stand up, I had to follow Howie Mandel. So my
Yeah.
second time. So after I did my first time, weeks later, I can't remember how long later. It could have been like a month or two later. I can't remember. When I got my second spot, that's when Howie Mandel showed up, and so he came up on stage and did about 40 minutes or something like that, and I had to perform right after him. So that was my second time on stage ever. But later on, years later, Howie Mandel has showed up on our show as well. So we had him as a special guest on our show. So I had probably showed up twice. So I probably had 3 encounters with Howie Mandel during my stand-up TV career.
Okay. Yeah. I never got to meet Howie, but he reached out to me one time through his assistant, and then
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
it's kind of this one shot I had in my career out of a couple of other ones, but this one I often refer to as the big one from the Hollywood calling, and then
The
I kind
Hollywood
of
calling.
his assistant asked me if I was available for a call, that he wanted to talk on a call.
Yeah.
And then I said, oh yeah, I just have to pay my phone bill first. Um, and then I was a bit, I thought that, oh, there will probably be lots of these opportunities as well. But I was really flattered by it and excited, maybe pretending that I was not that excited, but I really was. And then I paid the phone bill the day after, or a few hours later, and I said, okay, I'm available now. And the assistant goes, yeah, can we talk to you sometimes next week? And I'm like, actually, I'm going to Brazil for the World Cup. This was back in 2014, football World Cup.
Okay.
And will that be a problem? And then they said, well, yeah, we can actually talk to you when you're back. And then it just never happened. It was, I think it was a production, some prank show or something. I think it was
Hmm.
the show called Deal With It.
Deal
Um,
with it. Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah,
I remember
uh,
that.
yeah. And how did the spirituality come in here?
This would have been years later. So, gosh, what year did I start stand up? I started stand up in 2000 and sorry, 90. I don't remember about 2000. 94. Yeah, I started in 94. So I was about 22 at the time. Yeah, I was 22 at the time. So around, gosh, 2002. So 2002, I was looking for, I've always had issues with auditions. I always felt like, there was something I can do more in auditions. So I was trying to find a way to help ease my anxiety when entering to auditions. So a friend of mine, who's also a TV show host, her name is Andrea Bain, recommended hypnotherapy. So I was like, oh, that'd be interesting. So maybe I can meet a hypnotherapist. He can hypnotize me and kind of help me with anxiety, with performance anxiety and things of that sort. So I went and looked up an organization. They were called Positive Changes. So I booked an appointment with them. And when I went to their appointment, I was hooked up with a hypnotherapist. I can't remember his name now. His name could have been Steve or Sean or something. I can't remember. And but they were using light and sound machines to put people to change people's brainwave state so that
Okay.
they can do their affirmations or positive affirmations and stuff through the techniques that they use within the hypnotherapy. So I was really intrigued by the light and sound machines. So they would use the light and sound machines and put on the goggles and put on the headphones, and I would hear these beats, and they said those are called binaural beats. So this is very interesting. And what is it supposed to do? I said, well, it alters your brain waves, and we can use it in a way to, if we can if you can bring your conscious mind to your subconscious mind, we can deliver affirmations to you. So I said, okay. So we did these sessions, these hypnotherapy sessions, and I listed things that I wanted in my affirmation. So things like, dealing with anxiety, and some of the stuff I said was like to help me with creativity, to broaden my creativity, things of that sort, and also add in things like because I didn't know anything about spiritual enlightenment or anything that stuff. I didn't know anything about metaphysics, none of that stuff. So my thing was like, I want to gain the knowledge of the universe. Like I threw an affirmation for that. So it's like, I want the knowledge of the universe. Since I have to make up all these affirmations, let that be one of them. So he put that in there and whatever, and then he would use it in our sessions. And of course, we had to do do the reinforcement sessions at home. So I would play the tapes at home. This is back in the day when we were using cassette tapes and stuff like that. CDs and stuff were available, of course, but they would record their stuff on cassette tapes and everything like that. So I'd take them home, listen to the cassette tapes, go back to my appointments and do the actual light and sound machines. And I realized after some time that it really opened up my creativity. Right. I would wake up in the middle of the night with just with crazy ideas and ideas for jokes and even how to expand on the existing jokes I already had that I was already working with on the circuit, all that stuff. A lot of amazing things were happening on that level. So I said, I want to order these light and sound machines for myself. So I ordered two light and sound machines, or ordered one for myself and one for my friend Tara. So we started using these machines on a daily basis. And I realized when I was using these machines that my state of mind would change. And I did feel at ease. And when I went to shows, actually, I almost got to a car accident once. And I realized in that moment during the incident that I was calm the whole way through. And I've never experienced that kind of calm before. And I said, wow, I think these things really do work. So I kept on using them for a period of time. And after this point, I finished all my sessions with the hypnotherapy center. So I continued using these light and sound machines, not every day, but just at first I was, because I was so intrigued by them. And after a while, I'll probably use them like 3 times a week and things of that sort. But I like the changes that happen. So I said, you know what? I wonder, after a while, you don't feel the effects anymore, because after a while, your brain gets used to the frequencies and the carrier frequencies of that sort. So I wanted to see if there was anything out there that was like stronger than that. So I remember it was a Saturday night, and I said, I'm going to look up. I was watching a movie. I was watching that movie. What was the name of that movie? Lawnmower Man. I was watching that movie, Lawnmower Man, and how his brain got enhanced, and then he became evil, and he started doing whatever. So I said, you know what? I wonder if there's something, if there's like some kind of technology, maybe something similar that I was already using, that would be even stronger than what I was using, because what I was using wasn't working as much anymore. So I went online and I found a company online that sold brainwave entrainment on CDs, and they made all these claims that calm, it will help you to become calm, relax, but also make claims about expanding your awareness, your creativity, heighten your intelligence, and all these claims. And I'm just like, oh, come on, there's no way, right? There's no way a sound can do all that. So I read all the information on there, and what I liked about it, that it had so much information on this thing, that I said to myself, I can't see how someone would be so dedicated to write all this literature on something that wasn't true, because it just takes a lot of commitment, because there was lots of information on this thing, and I did days of research going through all this information. So I said, you know what, I want to give this thing a try. So they offered a free sample, so I ordered the sample. Weeks later, the sample came, because this is back in the day, we didn't have all the stuff that we have now. You had to actually wait weeks for a product to come in. So especially at the time, it was on CDs, and we didn't have MP3 and WAV files and all that stuff yet. So I ordered the CD online. The CD eventually came in. The sample was really, it's a sample, which is a short sample, like a 50-minute sample, if I believe. And it was just introducing the product of what it was and what it does and all that type of stuff. So I listened to it. I said, this is interesting. I didn't feel anything, but I said, this is interesting. But I'm intrigued enough to want to try the actual program because they offered an actual program. So I went online, ordered the actual program. Weeks later, the program comes in, and I remember putting in the CD and the CD man that we had at the time because we don't use those anymore, and put on my headphones. I went to sit up with my back straight, closed my eyes, and minutes later, I felt this pounding sensation on the top. Sorry, was it on top of my head?
Yeah.
Top of my head. I didn't know anything about chakras, so I didn't know it was called the crown chakra or anything like that. But I felt this pounding sensation that I never felt during any of the light and sound machines sessions that I did. So I said, "Wow, this is really, really interesting." So that alone made me very intrigued. So I started to use this on a daily basis. As I started using this, I think it was like days later, I woke up one day and I had like a wet dream just out of nowhere. And it was just like, what the hell is going on with my body? So I took note of that. And as I kept going on with this stuff, other things started to happen. Like I'd have like moments of bliss. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, piss drunk. And even though I don't drink, I'm not a drinker. So I'd wake up in the middle of the night, like intoxicated. All these things were crazy. Oh yeah, it was mind blowing. It got to the point where I wanted to, it made me start to drink again. So I said, wow, this is amazing. I'm getting drunk and I don't even drink. What would happen if I did drink? So I would do these experiments where I would go out with my comedy friends. I would go to the Just for Laughs festival and I would drink. Like I would drink heavily while I was doing this housing thing, and I couldn't get drunk.
What?
So that's what really got me. It was like, I can't even get drunk. I'm like mixing drinks and everything. Nothing would happen. And I was just like, wow, this thing is extraordinary. So I kept on doing this program. And of course, once I finished that level, they offered other levels, deeper levels that were even stronger. So I kept on ordering the other deeper levels. And then I started to get into the idea of spirituality and things of that sort, because your brain starts to change and you start to see things from a different standpoint. And then I just became really, really intrigued about spirituality and about, I didn't know anything about enlightenment. I've heard the term, but I didn't really know what that was. But I just kept on doing that. I got interested in metaphysics and things of that sort. And I was on that path for a while I just continued to meditate. And this is something that I did every single day. Even to this day, I've never missed a day of this form of meditation. I've always put in at least an hour of time doing this. So I kept doing that. I was reading books about metaphysics, and I didn't know anything about Advaita Vedanta or Buddhism or any of that stuff. I just kept on going with what I was doing on a daily basis. I would meditate, and then I would end up having lucid dreams and vivid dreams, and again, more moments of bliss, and other strange things would happen. I had this strange experience where I was meditating with this program, and I felt that my body split in half. So, which was weird because my body felt like my body split in half, and I had to open my eyes because it really literally felt like my body split, and my body was still intact. I was like, oh my gosh, what the hell is going on here? So all these little tiny things that would happen encouraged me to keep going. Because again, I've never missed a day to this very day. I've never missed a day since 2003, April 2003 till this very day. Even before I met with you, I did my hour.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, I always put my time. I wake up like 6 o'clock in the morning. I put in my hour. But lately, I've been doing like 2 hours a day, and on the weekends, I put in 4 hours a day. So I'm really, really dedicated to this stuff. So time kept on going. At this point now, I believe I'm like 2 years in, because after that time, I was wrapping up my last year of shooting buzz, and we're calling it quits. And so I was wrapping up my last year. And we were nominated for some awards and things of that sort, and we won some, and other ones we were just nominated for. We didn't win the award. So I was going through this period of just experiencing the achievements of our success and all that. But after when we ended the show, and I was looking for more work. I went back to doing stand-up. Well, I never stopped doing it, but I went back to do stand-up like full time and all that. And then I just got to a point where I woke up one day and I didn't feel like doing any more stand-up or auditioning or doing any more TV. One day I just woke up and just lost all the motivation. So I said, gosh, I don't have this motivation to doing this stuff anymore, into doing any of these things anymore. What am I going to do? So I took 2 years off, took care of my boys because my boys were really young at the time. So they were at the time they were 2 and 4 years old, and I have a daughter too, but she wasn't born yet. She was born years later. So I took 2 years off, and I started just to search. I just wanted to search. I was looking for something, something that had a deeper meaning, but I didn't know what it was because again, I grew up in the Christian tradition, Pentecostal Christian. I didn't know anyone that knew anything about any of the others. Well, there was a stand-up comic who told me about Buddhism years ago, and he was a Buddhist, and he was. I remember him sharing stories with me of experiences of gurus of what they've gone through, especially when it comes to reincarnation. So that stuck with me. So I remember having that conversation with this guy. I don't remember the name of the comic because I only worked with him once. I've never seen him on a regular basis on the circuit. He was just a guy that I met when we were doing some of our road gigs, and I ran into this guy. We were on the same bill, and he told me about this stuff, and I just found that very intriguing. So I kept that in the back of my mind. But other than that, I didn't really know anyone or anyone that knew about any of these traditions. So at this point now, I'm searching. I'm doing all this stuff. I had this need to work in the community, to do a nonprofit, to work with a nonprofit. So I remember when I was trying to make that decision, what I was doing was I was volunteering. So I was going around volunteering. I was teaching people how to tap into their creativity. I remember I was doing that, and I would volunteer my time with other youth workers, people who I knew in the community. And I would shadow them, watch what they did and things of that sort. And I said, and the person I was shadowing at the time, her name is Kim Alexander. So I would shadow her, and she inspired me. I liked what she was doing, and I said, I think I want to do that. I want to leave TV, stand up, do all that, and I want to go into youth work. I want to work with people. I want to work with youth, and she inspired me to do that. So I remember when I was about to make that decision, I remember having a conversation with Russel Peters on the phone. So because we go way back, and his thing was, why do you want to go back into the community when you worked so hard to get out of it? And that stuck with me because it's like, why would you do all that? And I said, I don't know. I just feel this need to go back. So that was the last time I spoke to him on the phone because I haven't seen Russell since then. Oh no, I did see Russell once after that because a fellow comic of ours was getting married. So and Russell was the best man at his wedding. So that was the last time I saw Russell Peters. So that was in 2006. So in 2006, I went out and I started to see if I could find employment within the nonprofit sector. Eventually, I did land a job as a youth worker, as a program facilitator, and so I started doing that. While I was doing that, I met another guy, and he had his own thing that was going on. He's into spirituality and some other stuff, and he used to give out all these free VHS tapes on many different topics, but the ones that struck me the most were the ones that were on metaphysics and things of that sort. So he'd give me these videos, I'd watch them at home, and it would inspire me and things of that sort. As time went on, he asked me if I would MC because he knew I was a stand-up comic. He knew a lot about me and my career and things like that. So he asked me if I would host one of his community events. So I remember going down to host his community event, and this guy showed up. It was this guy. He looked like a guru type of guy. It was a black guy. Looked like he was wearing. I don't think he was wearing a robe, but in my mind, it's how I imagined he was wearing a robe and slippers. I don't remember if he was wearing that, but that's how I always envisioned this guy. He had long dreadlocks, kind of looked like Jesus, and he was going around. He was holding a book, an Osho book. So he was going around and he was talking to these other young people of color about Osho and the words of Osho. So I was standing in the back and I was listening to him talk about this guy. And when he talked about Osho, it really struck me. So he read this quote from Osho. And when he read that quote, I said, that's what I want. All right. So whatever this guy's into, that's what I want. So that stuck with me. So I started to look up Osho and started to read the words of Osho and all of that. And Osho was the only person I knew. I didn't know about any other spiritual guru. I just knew about Osho. So I started reading Osho. I was really touched by a lot of the things that he said. And so as I'm still meditating every day, that was my focus. So everything, whatever Osho was talking about, that's what I want. So I just kept on doing that. And at this point, and I missed a lot of things during this conversation. There's a lot I missed, but what I should mention, 2 years prior to that, maybe a year prior to that, I can't remember, maybe 2 years prior to that, I thought of an idea where, because again, we're using brainwave entrainment, and brainwave entrainment, especially this program, and also the one that I created, the claim is that this form of brainwave entrainment is about 8 times more powerful than traditional meditation. That's the claim. So I said, I wonder if people have ever used meditation and psychedelics, because a few years prior, my friend Tara introduced me to shrooms. And if you knew me back then, you could never get me to take a psychedelic, because in my mind, I put them all in the same category. I didn't know the difference between LSD versus cocaine or something. I didn't know the difference between the two. I just looked at drugs as drugs. So she used to, on a regular basis, she would hit me up. She's like, "Hey, we're gonna do shrooms. You should come out with us." And I'll be like, "No, I'm just not into that." But one day I took her up on the offer. So prior to the hypnotherapy thing, I had a session with her where we took shrooms, and I had this spiritual experience that, went away. I didn't know what to do with that, but I had this spiritual experience. But that, I think, is probably the thing that motivated me to do all the other stuff that I talked about, like going to the hypnotherapist and all that, because that thing took place first. So now, to fast forward, I have this idea. And so what would happen if someone did brainwave entrainment with a psychedelic, right? But at the time, because this was so long ago, at the time, Tara probably didn't have any shrooms or anything like that, but she had some hash cookies, some marijuana cookies.
Okay.
So one night we ate these cookies, and then I would put on the brainwave entrainment program, put on the headphones, and what happened that day was so profound that I tapped into an experience where I remember being a baby. I was still in the crib, and I remember this. I remember having this daydream or whatever of seeing this bright blue tiger. And it's a memory that I forgot about, but in that moment that reoccurred, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I remember this!" And it was so vivid. It's this blue, bright tiger in my crib. It was just looking directly at me, and I was looking directly at the tiger, and then the image fade away. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've done weed how many times? I've never experienced anything like that before." So I said, I think there's something to using brainwave entrainment alongside with a substance, with a compound. So as time went on, I said, let's try this with shrooms. So time went on, and Tara, she was able to provide the shrooms, and we would put on our headphones, listening to this program, and see what would happen. And the things that would happen were just very, very profound. And I realized that it was much stronger than just doing a psychedelic alone. And of course, it was also stronger just doing the meditation alone. But of course, I kept doing my meditation every day without a compound. I did my meditation every single day, and once in a while, we would do like a shroom session. I kept doing this for a period of time. I kept doing this on and off for about maybe 2.5 years with these profound experiences. But these experiences were like, meeting like a lot of astral traveling, meetings, certain entities, encountering certain entities and lizard beings and things of that sort.
How big were the doses that you took at that time? Do you remember?
Probably 3 to 5 grams.
Shrooms, mushrooms.
Shrooms, yeah, but 3 to 5. And
so high doses.
Pretty high doses. They're pretty high doses.
Yeah,
they're pretty high doses, especially like up to 5 grams. They're pretty high doses.
Yeah.
And even if I did less of a dose, even if it was like 2 grams and whatever, you'd still get an amazing experience. Especially with the help with the brainwave entrainment. So as time went on, I kept doing this, and then of course I'm still reading the words of Osho, and Osho's all I knew. I didn't know anything about non-duality because Osho never speaks on anything called non-duality, anything like that, at least not that I'm aware of. So I just kept doing this for periods of time. And then in 2008, was it 2000? In 2008, I did the same procedure. I took the psychedelic, I took the shrooms, I put on my headphones, I listened for an hour, but this time nothing really happened. And I got really, really frustrated. So I was like, what the hell? I took the psychedelic, I took the shrooms, I did my hour of meditation, but nothing really. And if something did happen, I wasn't satisfied with it. It didn't fulfill me. So I remember I finished the hour, ripped off the headphones, frustrated, and I was just like, ugh, if I could just have whatever experience that Osho was talking about, if I can just have that experience, it'd be well worth it. So I'm just sitting there, frustrated, and then I broke. I was in that moment, I realized I was gone.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and that was the extraordinary moment. And that, of course, at that time was the most profound experience of my entire life. Everything that I've ever done with and without shrooms. This surpassed all of that and more. It was so mind-blowing, it was so incredible that it left me stunned for about 2 weeks. So I didn't mention it to anyone for 2 weeks because this experience lasted for about 3-4 hours. I walked around in this presence of being the empty witness, looking at its own manifestation.
Okay.
It was so profound, but I had the awareness of being everything, the awareness of being every life form, like every human being, every animal, every insect, every reptile, every cell, all that stuff. I had the awareness of all of that. It was so profound that after the experience was over, I was stunned. I was so stunned from that experience that I didn't know what to do with the information that I just had and the experience that just happened. 2 weeks went by, and I decided to tell a coworker of mine, and his name is Michael Israel. So I went up, I found Michael one day, and I said, "Hey, I want to tell you something." And I told him. And the reason why I told him, because he's the type of guy, he's a non-judgmental guy. So I said, let me just tell this guy and see what happens. And I told him, and he was like, wow, that's incredible. And so I was encouraged to tell other people. I ended up telling another friend of mine, and we haven't spoken since. He got really upset because he's an atheist. And when I told him what I experienced, he got real upset. And we've never spoken again since then, since 2008. And that happened with a number of people that were so upset of what I told them that they said I was blaspheming and I shouldn't say stuff like that. People are going to think you're crazy and all that type of stuff. So I said, whatever, it is what it is. I know what I just experienced. It was the most profound experience of my entire life. And I couldn't really keep it to myself. I didn't tell family members or anything like that. But what happened afterwards, I wanted to tell people so badly, but I'm like, I also remembered what people were telling me. Is like, if you go around telling people this stuff, people are going to think you're crazy. And you work in the nonprofit sector, you need to keep your mouth shut about this stuff. So what I did was I was working within the school system through my youth work. So I went to a Catholic school that I was working out of, one of the schools that I was running program out of. And I asked one of the teachers if I could come in and like speak in his philosophy class. He said, I'll come in once a week or so, or no, it wasn't once a week, probably once a month. And I'll come and talk to your class about Eastern philosophy. And he said, sure, come on in. I would love to have someone talk about something like that. So I'd go in once a month and go and talk about what I knew about Eastern philosophy at the time. But I'm talking in the third person. Like all the stuff that I experienced, I didn't say it was coming from me. I was saying these are things that you could experience. So I did it from that standpoint. And it inspired certain people in that class. And that led to a whole other thing that we probably won't be able to talk about today. But it's inspired a certain group of students who are with me to this day. They're now in their 30s, and they're now on their spiritual journey and all that. So a lot of it came out of doing those sessions. But that's what kind of opened me up to want to start talking about this stuff. As time went on, I started having 2 years went by where I didn't have that experience again. But 2 years later, same experience happened. So it happened again. And then a short time after that, it happened a third time. And this is like either with a psychedelic or without a psychedelic. The things started happening over and over again for like, 50 something times.
Really? Over how long?
Oh yeah. To the point where it was so powerful that it got to points where the what happened in 2008, it got stronger. It even got stronger. It got even more profound. And now at this point, I'm starting to hear about non-duality because that became a popular term. I would look into non-duality and I would say, yeah, I think that's what I've been experiencing, this non-dual presence and all that. But at the point, but still, that wasn't what I would call non-duality. Like at this point where I'm at. But it was enough for me. When I read about it, I said I can relate to that. And so after that, met with these group of young people, and they introduced me to, well, they didn't introduce me to DMT. I already knew about DMT, but never tried it. So I read about it, heard about it. So they had DMT, and so we on a regular basis would go and we try DMT, and that took things to a whole other level, something even more powerful than what I experienced back in 2008. At this point, this was like 2012, I think, yeah, 2012. And so we started doing experiments with DMT, but with, you know, brainwave entrainment,
Yeah.
all that stuff. So at this point, in 2010, I created Unity. This is Unity that people can order now.
Yes.
Unity is brainwave entrainment programs, 13 levels, well, 13 stages. Each has sub levels within each stage, and a lot of that came out of the inspiration of these experiences that I was having. So at this point now, we're experimenting with DMT to see what would happen if you did Energy with DMT. And this point, I'm talking about NDMT, not 5-MeO DMT.
Yeah.
A lot of
Still
people get the two.
interesting. Very.
You don't realize, that these are two different compounds.
Sounds powerful.
So very much more. 5-MeO DMT is probably like 1,000 times more powerful than NDMT.
Yeah.
But NDMT is
tried
probably
it.
the most psychedelic a person can ever have visually. So we started doing these experiments, trying at different frequencies, what would happen at the alpha level, what would happen at the theta, what happened at delta, what would happen at epsilon, started doing experiments, what would happen at gamma, hyper gamma, lambda. So we're just mapping them and see what would happen in all these different stages and what would be the differences and how are they distinct from each other, things of that sort. And those sessions that we were doing were just absolutely mind-blowing. But I realized that I was having unique experiences nobody else was having. That people had their profound experiences, but every time we held conversation, they didn't seem to be at the level that I was doing this. So I said, this has to be the brainwave entrainment, because again, this is something I've been doing every day, and the rest of the group, they didn't do it that way. There was probably a few people that were dedicated to it, but they did it once in a while, or just did it when they were trying out the psychedelic and things of that sort. So I said, there's something going on. There has to be something going on with the combination of brainwave entrainment and these psychedelic compounds. So that was very, very interesting. Shortly after, we were introduced to LSD, and this is something that I was always been afraid to dabble with. But I did my research, looked into everything that had to do with LSD, and then we started running experiments with LSD. Not a lot of us did this. A group of us were experimenting with LSD, but only a few of us were doing the combination of LSD and brainwave entrainment to see what would happen in these areas. And again, so profound, and we're hitting state. Well, I was at least hitting stages within the Tyria levels. At least the Tyria, not the Tyria Theta levels. Tyria Theta is a word which means beyond the fourth, which has to do with non-duality. But at least at the Tyria Theta, the most profound Tyria levels that I experienced with LSD, and we did this for years.
Because Tyria Theta, is that the end stage, the realizing enlightenment, essentially.
You can say that.
And to
I don't want to
the
say
experience.
the end stages. There's levels to this. There's levels to this, but at the highest level of Tyria Theta, you can say it's the end, which is really the beginning. Because remember, it's non-dual, so the end and the beginning are exactly the same.
Right.
At this, they're exactly the same. But at the Tyria levels, that I was able to do on a regular basis, with or without a psychedelic. So doing the combination of two triggered and did whatever it needed to do for me to be able to achieve those, I believe anyway, at these levels. Later on, we started doing ayahuasca. So, high priest of another type of a small religion. We became friends, and he introduced me to ayahuasca. I already knew about ayahuasca, but never tried it because I didn't know any shamans. I didn't know where I could be able to try drink this brew. So myself and a partner of mine, we went out and started to try ayahuasca with the shaman. And at first, I would meet with the shaman and drink ayahuasca, but later on, I would sneak in my headphones, my my device and my headphones, and I would do energy while doing ayahuasca and see what would happen in those stages as well. So I recorded all this information of what would happen while drinking ayahuasca. So I have information on what would happen with psilocybin, what would happen with LSD, what would happen with NN-DMT, and what would happen with ayahuasca, which of course everyone knows that's enriched with DMT and DMT. And we recorded all that information as well. And eventually I hit these profound stages within just from drinking the ayahuasca brew. And of course, it did a lot of the shadow work and all that stuff too, because ayahuasca is really good for shadow work. So we did all that. So I recorded all that information. And as time went on, I met a person at one of the ayahuasca retreats. I met a person there, and we became friends. And eventually, she introduced me to 5-MeO-DMT. Now, 5-MeO-DMT I've read about because I read the book Tryptamine Palace.
Okay.
Yeah, Tryptamine Palace. Yeah, I even emailed the author at the time. The author, his name is James. What's his name? He passed away recently. He passed away just a few years ago. His name is James. What's his name? Yeah,
I'll leave
I want to put it up. Yeah, it's so bad. I actually emailed him a few times, and he always emailed back just to encourage me and to all that type of stuff. But he seemed like he was a really, really great guy. But unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago on one of his trips. Not a psychedelic trip. He actually what is his career? He is not a stuntman. What is? Can't remember what he does something along the line of where he does like gosh, you got to look it up.
Okay. Yeah.
But an accident happened and they found his body eventually. But something happened during one of his trips. One of his stunts or tricks or something like that. He probably went hiking or something like that, and he did something risky. It ended up being fatal. Right. So he passed, but I believe he wrote 2 books. So I read Tryptamine Palace, and I was really, really intrigued about what he was talking about with 5-MeO-DMT and how it can create like the ultimate non-dual experience. So I meet this girl at one of the retreats, and she told me about a guy who's a practitioner who gives out 5-MeO-DMT. So I remember her going to see this guy. And I remember after her session, I hit her up and I was like, what happened? What happened? How was 5-MeO? And she's like, oh, I can't even talk about it right now. I can't even. I said, when I'm in a better, not when she's in a better place, but when she's able to talk about it, when she's able to put it into words, she'll contact me. But she never did. She never talked about it. So one day I hit her up. This is in sometime in 2018. I hit her up and I was just like, hey, you never told me your story about 5-MeO-DMT. And she's like, I can't do it. I can't do it. Yeah. So I said, how I would like to try. And she goes, no, a matter of fact, the guy is in town. I'll connect you to him. So she connects me to this guy. I met up with him and finally got to try 5-MeO-DMT. And that was on a whole entirely different level. Mm-hmm. Everything I've ever done up to that point, this surpassed everything. Absolutely everything. It was so profound. I'm not even going to make a facial. I'm not even going to make a facial expression about how I felt, because I just can't even. It was so profound. It was just absolutely incredible. This was at my first time experiencing full non-dual suchness, which I would definitely call Tiriatita. And this happened. I went to see him a number of times, and this would happen, and this would over and over and over again. And then I hit a moment where it was so profound. It was just absolutely just breathtaking. It was absolutely everything that I couldn't ever imagine. It was like the most incredible experience of my life. After that, somehow I got an email that this guru was coming into town, and his name is Paramahamsa Vishwananda. And he's a guy who lives out in Germany. But he's a guru, an avatar. The claim is he's an avatar and he was born enlightened and had his first Samadhi at the age of 6 and became a guru at the age of 12 or age of 14 or something like that. So he's coming into town to give darshan. And for those who don't know, darshan was when a guru blesses you. through through a look. So they
Yeah.
just
Mm.
look at you dead on. They may put their hands on your head and they'll look at you dead on for like 20
Mm.
seconds, and that's considered darshan. So I remember getting the email. I said, you know what, I want to go see this guy. So I made preparations to go see him. I went downtown because I live in Canada. I live in Ontario. So the city I live in Ontario is Toronto.
How
So
long was this after the non-dual experience with the 5-MeO?
probably months,
Yeah, in the same year.
maybe about 6 months.
Yeah.
6 months after that experience.
Yeah.
So I went to go see him. We waited a long time because there was like hundreds of people there, and you had to line up, and one by one, he will look into your eyes and let you go. So eventually, he looks into my eyes. I see him. He looks into my eyes. He lets me go. The day after, I started feeling the same stuff that I felt after doing 5-MeO. So
Yeah.
what happened with 5-MeO, which I should explain to your audience, is I was getting a lot of these seizures. A lot of seizures would happen. I'd get these seizures. I'd get them in my sleep. I'd be sleeping, and my upper body would spring up and start shaking.
Yeah.
For a few minutes, and I'd come
Wow.
back down. Like all these weird things started happening. My arms would fling up on its own without my doing. All this stuff has to do with Kriya, right? So my arms would flow up, would jump up without my conscious doing. My head would do all these strange things. With my body would do all this stuff without
Yeah.
my conscious doing. I would make these facial expressions where I'll be walking and my face would do this over and over and over again. And this happened for weeks. And it would happen with my legs. I'd be walking, my leg would do its own thing on its own, whatever. And my chest would like on its own. All these strange things were happening with my body. People were concerned, but for me, I thought it was very amusing. I thought I
Yeah,
was like,
you
this is
didn't
so,
become self-conscious about it.
was that?
You didn't become self-conscious about it. I mean, in the way
No,
that you
because
you were worried.
these are things that I've read about in books anyway. Like when they talk about reaching higher stages of development, they talk about these things and Kriya and all that stuff. So it all happened. I was like, oh, that must be Kriya.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wasn't concerned about it at all. But of course, when I went to the 5-MeO practitioner, and I told him about these things. He's like, no, I've never heard of that happening to anyone after doing 5-MeO.
Really?
So that, yeah. But again, I'm doing brainwave entrainment at this point now with Yinergy. I'm like level 13 with the lowest carrier frequency, the highest level of potency within the range. I'm doing all that. And while doing all my other practices, at this point, I've already done, at least 7,000 hours of this stuff, at least 7,000 at this point.
Wow. Okay.
I've done neurofeedback training. I've done yoga, Kundalini yoga. I trained with Kundalini yoga with Krishna Kerr, who's out of Los Angeles. I've done neuro this and neuro that, and electro stimulation this. So I've done all these things at this point in this 16.5 years at this point, right? So I'm doing all this work. I'm doing shadow work. I've drank ayahuasca, practicing with some qigong movements and all that type of stuff. So there's years and years of stuff of practice that I've been putting in throughout this time period. This is only because of the length of time. I'm keeping it short, but all these things were taking place during this time. So at this point, I've probably already done like 20 sessions of neurofeedback training and all that stuff while this is happening. And at this point, I'm already like teaching spirituality to people and all that as well.
Okay. Yeah.
During
About
that time period. So
did you call it non-duality there? Did you what kind of
Yes, I did because
teaching?
there was lots of non-duality experiences, but not to the level after with the 5-MeO DMT.
Did you
Yeah,
teach
that just took.
non-duality at that point?
Well, I've been teaching non-duality since 2012.
Yeah.
Since 2012. So
Cool.
now that after experiencing this, the way how I looked at non-duality changed. Yeah, it definitely changed. But now I'm at this point now where after 5-MeO, as I said, all these body movements are happening spontaneously and all that stuff. And after a while, it calmed down. But when I met with Paramahamsa Vishwananda, it started again. Right. So the moment that I left him, on my way home, arms flying up, legs, everything, like
Yeah.
face, everything, all that stuff would happen all over again. And then that kept on happening for a number of months. And then by the end of that year, because I met him in September of 2019, by the end of that year, I'm meditating with the energy, and I broke. I'm meditating with the energy, and everything that could ever happen, that has ever happened and will never happen, existence, non-existence, past, present, and future, every animal, every human being, every species, every living and non-living thing, every molecule, every atom, every subatomic particle, every particle, string theory, everything. The Big Bang, Big Bang's prior to that Big Bang, the ending of the universe, the beginning of the universe, dinosaurs, galaxies, solar systems, planets, stars, Milky Ways, universes, everything happened in one moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, life was forever changed after that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was in December.
That was in December 2019.
Yeah. You met him in September, you said? And
I met him
then
in
this
September.
happened.
Yeah, September the 3rd, 2019.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's always the day before we go back. Yeah, it was a holiday, Labor Day. So yeah, September 3rd of 2019. And then what happened to me happened December 14th of 2019.
Yeah.
And I've met with him many times after that. At this point, because 2020, the pandemic happened. So everything had to be moved virtually. So I met with him many times virtually, but I got to meet with him again in person for another session of Darshan last September of 2022. So I went to see him again in person. And after that, I had 2 more awakening experiences after that, not to the level of what I was just speaking about. But I had 3 more actually. Sorry, I had 3 more. So I had one that happened last year, and then after meeting him, last year or it was the year before? I'm so lost right now. I think that one happened the year before, and then after meeting him in September of last year of 2022, I had 2 more spiritual awakenings after that, but not to the level of what happened in December. But it had 2 more after that, after meeting him. Yeah.
That experience where everything happened and non-happened and everything and nothing.
Everything and nothing, existence, non-existence, God, man, everything, absolutely everything. Not only just everything. It was also every situation, every event, every birth that's ever taken place, every death that's ever taken place, every assassination, every torture, every abortion, every time a bug was stepped on and squished, all of that. every flap of the bird's wings, every raindrop, every grain of sand, every bit of stardust, everything. Absolutely, it was just absolutely profound. Not only was it realized, because with the other experiences, it's a mind thing, because it's insight. Because for people that don't know, especially with 5-MeO and also with the experience of absolute monism, because this is higher than non-duality at this point. This is like absolute monism. There's nothing to see. So a lot of people, it's like, what do you see? It's like, you don't see anything. It's just insight. It's just insight. Because you can't see it, because now that it's totally non-dual, it can't see itself because it's totally non-dual. But you get to a point where you do see itself, but it's not through like the eyes or anything like that. It's just an insight. But you're not just having the insight, you become the insight.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. So you're not just having an insight, you become the insight, because there's no you to have the insight, because all the distinctions are removed. So there is no you having the experience, because you and the experience becomes one thing. The subjective and the objective becomes one thing. So all of that becomes mushed into this one absolute singularity. So I don't remember what point I was trying to make there, but what did I say in the beginning of that? But yeah, but everything that could ever happen happened. So all situations, all events, every birth, every death, all reincarnations of everyone that's ever lived and everything that's ever lived, reincarnations, everything. The Big Bang prior to that, Big Bang prior to that, at least that's how I interpreted it. Okay? All of that happens, and yet at the same time, none of it ever happened. So all of that was mixed into one as well. So everything that's ever happened that will happen happened, yet none of it ever happened at all, because all of it's happening in the mind of the all, which is you.
Yeah.
It's just making it up
Yeah.
within its mind. And this is something I've always known, but to experience that to that degree, with that level of depth.
Yeah.
The point I was trying to make is, not only are you, when a person has that moment of enlightenment, it's not just a mind thing. Every cell, every molecule, every atom, every particle in your body gets the same realization. So in the moment that happens, when you say to yourself, I am God, it's not what you're actually saying, but just lack of a better term, you say, I am God. Every molecule and every atom and every particle in your body says that.
Yeah.
Everything says simultaneously, I am God, or I am Brahman, I am Jehovah, I am whatever, but you're not using those names. It's just to make it easier on people who are, because it's beyond all names, all titles. Yet it includes all names, all titles.
Yeah, you could say pizza.
Yeah, you can say pizza, and it means the same thing. You can say cup, you can say computer, you can say Zoom. All means the same thing at that moment. So everything in your entire body experiences this absolute monism, which is so profound. Because usually it's either a mind thing or a heart thing, or a combination of the two. But in this case, it's every bit of you that comes to that realization. And then and I was fine with that. That was good enough. I didn't need anything else after that. But what took place after that experience happened, and then I had a full experience of Kundalini. I had a Kundalini awakening after that was wearing off. A Kundalini awakening took place right after that.
Yeah.
On top of that, I didn't even need that. And that was my first time experiencing Kundalini to that degree. Because I've experienced Kundalini many times throughout the years. A lot of stuff has to do with Kundalini, but after having that non-dual experience, and I was coming back into my body, and then I ended up having a Kundalini awakening right after that. So that just did it for me.
Was that did that ground the experience more after the Kundalini awakening after this event? Like,
you can say that
to get it into the
but
body?
Again, it wasn't even needed.
Okay.
It wasn't even needed. I was already grounded. There was nothing more that could be done at that. And as I'm laying there, because I'm crying, right? I'm crying, and I'm crying. I'm laughing. I have no control of my body movements, because you lose control of all your body movements, right? So you can't. Everything is gone. You just lose control of everything. It's like the ultimate kriya, right? And then after the Kundalini awakening took place, and it felt like a snake, like a python snake was moving throughout my body, and I could feel it coming from the tailbone of my spine up my spine, but it controlled everything of my body, but also all my subtle bodies too. So all my subtle bodies, like the emotional body, the mental body, astral body, ether body, causal body, non-dual body. Well, not the non-dual body, because it wasn't a non-dual experience after that point. So at this point, I'm aware of myself. I know who I am, watching myself having this experience. During the non-dual experience, I don't know who I am as Morgan per se. I just know myself as the cosmic being, or the cosmic presence, because it's not even a being. But you know yourself as that, right? Having this experience of the entire, or what you call existence. But when you're having the Kundalini experience, I'm back, my ego's back. I know that I'm Morgan having a Kundalini experience. So in this moment, I'm feeling this python snake from the tailbone of my spine, pushing all the way up to my throat, up to my head, past my third eye chakra, and burst off the top of my head. Yeah. And what came out of the top of my head was, now I understand when we talk about the lotus flower, the thousand petals of the lotus flower, but it wasn't 1,000 petals. It was trillions and trillions of petals made out of light pouring out of my skull. So it's all pouring out of my skull, like these big, huge petals made out of light pouring out of my skull, and it would dissipate as it hits the ground. That's how profound this thing was. It was so mind-blowing. If I had that alone, I would have been good. If I just had the Kundalini awakening, I would have been good. But I got them both. The most profound experience of all experience of all experience. It surpassed any psychedelic I've ever done, surpassed psilocybin, all my psilocybin episodes, my LSD episodes, my DMT episodes, my 5-MeO DMT episodes, all the ones I had naturally, all in one and more.
And so that there's the event, right? Okay, 14th December, this happened.
Yeah, 14th of December.
And then could you say, or would it be a weird angle, but could you say that it stayed that way, or was it just a profound realization that just changed everything? And it was
well, you can't say that way. That would kill you.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
You can't stay that way. This is one thing that people need to get there. People are saying, I want to have this experience and have a permanent experience. You can't have a permanent experience in these realms. What does happen though is you have a permanent shift. Yeah, because if I stayed in that state, you would have to lock me up. Because you can't make a distinction between here and there, up and down, left and right, hot and cold. You can't make those distinctions because everything becomes one thing. You can't live in that state. But you can keep going to levels of these states throughout your being, right? That can happen. But you have a shift. The shift takes place. Your heart opens up, your crown opens up, your third eye opens up, all these things open up. But there's also a recovery period because when you're making the shift, it's not that comfortable. At least not for me. It's not very comfortable all the time. So you're slowly making these shifts, these psychological shifts throughout. I'm still going through it right now. So throughout a time period, you're making these changes throughout these shifts because if you had it all at once and was able to transform all at once, you go insane because your body has to be totally purified. Your nervous system has to be totally aligned. Your brain and the two hemispheres of your brain has to be totally balanced out. All these things have to occur. So it would happen to most people gradually. I'm sure it happens to the odd person all at once, but it happens to most people gradually. I would say, it's just so that you don't have have a psychological downfall from all of this, where people can't tell what's happening to, and they may confuse it, mistake it as a mental illness. So you can't stay in these states, but you can visit there naturally on a regular basis, at least to some degree. So even after what happened after that, as I'm making these psychological changes, when I meditate, I still fall into Samadhi. So after that, I probably had like maybe 200, maybe even more. I stopped counting at 200. So more than 200 of these Samadhi states where you're meditating and, the bright light happens, because what you see in these states is a bright light takes place. It's actually, I never thought that was literal. When people say bright light, I say, oh, that's not literal. It just means, it's a metaphor for awareness. But I realized that, no, there actually is a bright light. There is a bright light that appears. And then you look at the bright light and then you merge with it and then you become one with the light. And then after that, there's nothing else to see. So
people talk about a white light in 5-MeO DMT experiences.
Yeah, that's there.
Is it the same kind of light, or is it changing texture in its own unique
same kind of light, but I wouldn't say not as bright as the 5-MeO experience. The 5-MeO experience is like 1,000 suns, right? When you're sitting there naturally meditating, you see a bright light, but I wouldn't say it's the same type of brightness, no. Yeah, and then you merge with the light, and what happens at these lower Samadhi stages, because they're not Samadhi at the highest levels that I'm experiencing during the daily meditations. It's just one of the lower, very profound though, levels of Samadhi, where you break into Samadhi trance. You break into a meditative trance, and you sit there for a few seconds in that trance, and it's so profound. And then you slowly come out of that trance, and then you're just sitting there meditating. So that would happen on a regular basis. Happened yesterday too. It happened yesterday. Not as profound, but I had a small dose of it yesterday. So it happens when it happens. But there was a time period where it would happen every day, nonstop, 7 days a week, for the next 2.5 years at least. And then it stopped for about a year. And then it started up again after I saw Paramahamsa Vishwananda in September. It started up again for about 2 months. And just it happened yesterday. Small degree, it happened yesterday. But nothing profound, nothing serious. So that happens throughout your meditations. Those things are like permanent shifts and things like that. Psychologically, there's some change. I started doing a lot of crazy stuff. Like if you look at my shirt, this actually says Paraparahan, but I took Paraparahan Sanskrit and made it into an actual mandala, and all
You
these
made
things.
that.
Creative person, so I just started doing all these things to express what I'm feeling. So like a lot of things takes place. You're writing a lot of literature and you're trying to talk to people as much as possible. And prior to Guru Viking, you probably never heard of me because
No.
I did a lot of stuff like on YouTube and Tumblr and things of that sort. But I had never done any podcasts with anyone. Well, I have like with local people, but nothing on a larger scale. I didn't do any of those things because like I don't, especially at the time, all right, you don't want to get attacked by people. All right. You don't want to get attacked, especially with people with different belief systems or people who are of the same circle. But, you know, they said, there's no way you had that. I've been at this for a long time and that's never happened to me. I don't think that's happened to you. Like you get these type of attacks from people.
Yeah.
So these are things I was trying to avoid. But after 2019, I couldn't avoid that anymore. There's no way for me to keep that to myself. I don't feel like I'm doing it. I don't feel like I'm doing a service for anyone by keeping all that to myself, or at least keeping to a small group. So
That's
I had
interesting.
going out and reaching out to other people, or people started to contact me if they saw me do like a conference here and there. And I said, you know what, I'm going to just go full out and start doing these interviews. If people want me, I'll do them.
Yeah. So there's no there's less worry about what people would think about it after that point.
After the point, just like fuck it.
Yeah. Is that because there's a higher calling, and or is it like the general social anxiety that people walk around with was gone after that?
You can say that. You can say that. There was still some anxiety about it to some degree, but you can say that. But there's also more when what happened to me on December 14th. I realized it wasn't just for me; it was for everyone.
Yeah.
So for me to have that experience and keep that to myself, it just wouldn't be the right thing to do because it's like this wasn't for me. This was like a collective thing. It's like it's my job and it's the job of everyone who's on this journey that it's not about enlightening ourselves; it's about enlightening the world. So that's my duty. I have to do that, even if I risk my job and all that stuff. That's whatever. Fuck it. I'm gonna do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard that some people get that calling and some people don't get that calling. But I think in your case, I mean, since you're already a trained communicator, maybe that could have inspired you more, or you could sort of have been chosen for it. I mean, through your, because I really appreciated the description you gave about that 14th December event in right now and in the podcast with Steve James.
Yeah, and even everything I said about that moment, it's still not even it.
No,
it's I can't. There's no way for me to explain that.
No,
so, everything that I said about it is like take it and throw it away because that's not it. This is me trying to use words in the best way that I can of what this thing was, but this is beyond anything. This is beyond language. This is beyond everything, yet included language. Because in that moment when everything in my body and outside of my body said, I am Brahman, it was said, it felt to me, it was said in every language possible, and not just languages that are exclusive to planet Earth, but all languages. It was like a cosmic thing of saying of what I truly am. But when I say I don't mean I just mean like Morgan.
Yeah.
I representing the collective, the absolute, the whole cosmos, the universe, the multiverse, everything. It was this thing that came out and just said what I actually am. It was, gosh, it's so profound. I don't even want to have that experience again. I don't think I can go through another one of those. To be honest, it traumatizes. Like for me, I can't speak for other people, for the rare group of people who've had that experience, but it's traumatizing in a positive way. But the idea of thinking about it, I get anxiety thinking about if I had the opportunity to do that again. My anxiety goes up because to experience an actual death, an ego death, that's not something I look forward to. To be dead honest with you.
Yeah. And this was another level of this was another dimension than what you had before experienced of ego deaths in the nature of 5M, DMT context and the sober experiences and other substances.
Yeah, because when you're
right?
doing 5-MeO-DMT and you experience absolute ego death,
Yeah.
at that point it's like there's no way you can die even deeper than that.
Yeah.
And then you have this experience after meeting with Paramahamsa Vishwananda. And I'm
Mm.
like, oh my gosh, I had no idea what a true ego death was. And I'm sure there's even deeper levels than that. Right. So when you experience that,
Mm.
a full ego death, when I look back at it, it's frightening. But in the moment, it's not, because you're dying. Your ego is temporarily dying,
Mm.
and and once you surrender to it, you surrender to it. But thinking back at that, I'm like, how did I do that? How did I actually let go of my ego totally, to experience all that is?
Mm.
I can't even wrap my brain around that.
Mm.
But that day, I was blessed. I was lucky. I was whatever I had to do for that to happen, it happened. I'm just very grateful that it did.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Great. I'm gonna look at the notes here because I had some
Maybe
questions.
James Orrock. It's nice
Was
coming
that?
back to James Orrock,
Oh yeah,
the author that wrote
yeah,
Tryptamine Palace. James
yeah, the
Orrock, I
book.
think.
Yeah,
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 for those who want to look him up, great book.
yeah. I'll try to see if I can put a link there.
Yeah.
Um, what's your experience? What's your perspective? How did you perspective since you were a comedian? Um, all this experience in comedy. How has and also from your personality, some reason you were drawn towards comedy. How has your perspective on humor has it changed? Has it deepened?
Hmm.
How do you view humor? Or did you see the world in a more funny way after this experience?
Well,
Still like
that already happened in 2008.
yeah.
Because a lot of changes happened in 2008. So people ask me, so what happened after December 14th? I'm still unfolding. All that stuff is still unfolding. But my perspective on humor, all that stuff changed in 2008. The level of the empty witness has been there since then. It's never changed, nothing profound or anything like that, but it's always been there. At least from since 2008. But I would say after December 14th of 2019, what has changed to some degree is before, um, I wasn't teaching humor to other comedians, teaching comedy to other comedians. I now do.
No,
So we
you
have a
do.
program where I'm teaching young comedians comedy, which I stayed because when during that time period I stayed away from comedy. I didn't even watch comedy. I didn't even watch
Mm.
comedy specials or anything. Maybe I watched the odd one like Patrice O'Neill and a few other people, but I stayed away from comedy. But something got me to kind of go back into it. So right now we're running a course with the comedian. Last year I assisted with one of my mentors, Kenny Robinson, for a few months in his comedy program, and now I'm now assisting my other mentor, Ronnie Edwards, who happened to find my workplace. He didn't even know I worked there, but he was moved to wanting to do a comedy program, and he heard my supervisor, I believe it was my supervisor, on a podcast, and he contacted her and he says, "Hey, I wanted to see if I can run a comedy program at your organization." She told me about it, and I said, "Who's the comedian?" She said, "Ronnie Edwards." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's my mentor."
Yeah.
Now he's at my center now, and we run a comedy program every Wednesday. Where we're teaching young comedians how to write comedy. So I feel this strong urge
Cool.
of teaching young people
Mm.
how to write comedy, which I wasn't doing in the past how many years,
Mm.
up till last year. I wasn't doing that. So that has changed. When I was like, well, let me teach what I know to the younger generation of people who are doing comedy now. But the other thing about with comedy, um, I've broken it down to many levels. Like comedy, I look at it very psychological. So I look at the psychological aspects of comedy. I also I After my experience, I went and I did an 18-month course with integral theory
Yeah.
through a company that were involved with Ken Wilber. I did an
Yes.
18-month course with them with integral theory with the stages of psychological development. So I now take comedy and I break it down in the stages of psychological development to see the different stages that a comic would go through as they grow psychologically as a comedian. So all of that I've done, which I probably wouldn't have done before, but I just look at comedy in the way where I've taken and I've broken it up in different angles, and I share these perspectives with my with the students that Ronnie's working with.
Mm.
Yeah, but comedy overall, the moment that all this happened, I could see it as the cosmic joke.
Yeah.
The joke that no one gets until they listen to the punchline once again and they realize, oh my gosh, the whole time I've been fooled to believe that I am who I thought I was. And even though I've had this awareness how many times, because when I told people about the final one that happened December 14th, everyone says, Morgan, you said all these things already. What's changed? You said all these things for years. And I'm like, yes, I know, but there's something else that's happening on top of what I've been saying, which I can't explain. Right. Because again, I've been teaching non-duality for years. But in that moment, that moment, you can say that I actually experienced the cosmic joke. And I always relate it back to comedy, because that's probably why I had to go into comedy in the first place. Because comedy did help me in regards to at least the techniques of how you write a joke and how you tell a joke. The rules to me are the same as they seem to be the same rules as in metaphysics. The same idea that all jokes are made up of two or more ideas. And it's just the same in metaphysics, how you have the positive and the negative force, and two of them, whatever, and it does what it does, and all that stuff. To me, it was like all the same stuff. So I felt like comedy writing was the training ground for me to get into metaphysics, and then for me to move from metaphysics into higher consciousness, non-duality, all that stuff.
Do you have some? Does it work? Is this a model where you can put or intuitively associate certain comedians or certain moments of performance within each category? Let's say, Louis C.K.'s this stage, or Russel Peters are there, or could you do that?
I've done that actually. Okay. Yeah, I just did that a few weeks ago, actually. Just breaking down based on the information I know what stages comedians are at. No, I'm not gonna say here and say this comedian's at this stage. No, I don't want to do that, especially the ones that are still alive. But someone like Bill
watching
Hicks,
right now.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I want to put myself in that position, right? But someone like Bill Hicks, he would be at the post conventional stage. Sam Kinison would be at the non-conventional stage. So there's stages within the. It's hard to break down comedians within the line of development because you won't find comedians at the level of world-centric and cosmocentric stages, because how do you tell jokes at these stages, right? But you'll find comedians at the egocentric stage and at the ethnocentric stage. You'll find people, and you may find some comedians at the world-centric stage, if they're talking about world events and things like that sort. But if you're talking about lines of development where you have post-conventional, conventional, pre-conventional, non-conventional. I would say Sam Kinison is a non-conventional comedian. Bill Hicks is a post-conventional comedian, and there's comedians that are pre-conventional, and so you can find comedians at all these different stages. So weeks ago I've gone through breaking it down, and I broke down. I did break down. Who do you mention? Louis C.K. I did break him down too. I'm not going to put it out there, but he's at a high stage of development in regards to. In regards to humor,
he's doing MDMA therapy, I've heard, and mushrooms therapy, I've heard. Just
that's interesting.
Just for
which makes sense.
Why
because that whole camp is doing it now. Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle, and they're all going through their transitions with psychedelic therapy and all that stuff now too.
Right?
That makes sense that why he probably would be involved in that as well, because it's the same camp, right? So
I didn't know.
Yeah, but he's at a high stage of psychological development in regards to comedy, which is very, very, very cool to see when they start breaking down some of these comedians. You can, a lot of that stuff I've done. It's hard to teach because people have to be at certain stages of development to understand that. So it's not an easy thing to teach, but I do put it out there. So with my students, I'm more like, I like to plant seeds. So I do break down this information. I put it out there. I'm sure with my students now, it goes over their heads.
Hmm.
but I just plant the seed, just like that Buddhist comedian who planted the seed for me. Just from having one conversation, I was at least intrigued to say, oh, what is Buddhism all about? You know what I mean? So I'm just planting the seed. So yeah, for my younger comics, they have access to that information right now as we speak, because every day I post another some a writing technique or something psychological in regards to comedy that I feel that they should have. And I do that for them every day.
Well, what is it called? The program?
Well, the program it doesn't even have a name. It's just
Mm.
Ronnie Edwards comedy workshop.
Yeah.
So the goal, what we're trying to get these 5 comics to come up with a good polished 5 minutes material, and then we're going to try to see if we can put on an actual community event
Right.
at our agency. And we want to invite the families and youth to watch this comedy show. So that's the goal. That's what we're trying to do. So right now it doesn't have an official name, but
Yeah, it's a local
Ronnie Edwards comedy workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The moment when everything kind of you mentioned early, there was one moment where you just lost interest in comedy, or at least pursuing a career in it. What was, because I feel like I'm still there's this there's less and less of that pull towards coming to a scenario where a lot of people recognize me. I've experienced that before and been on that path towards more and more attention for my stuff, my content.
Yeah.
And then there were some shifts happening, and then there were just less interest in putting so much stress into putting more content out and all that. However, that's 7 years ago.
7 years.
And
Okay.
I've experienced a lot of shifts since then on a consciousness perception level.
Yeah.
There's still some voice there, some talking that come here from the comedy god, or from the social media success god, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Just, so how could that have disappeared? I'm curious. It just disappeared.
At that
What
time
did you
period,
see? What did you realize? Did you see through the illusion that, oh, this is not going to make me happy?
yeah, I'd say that. I said, this is not going to make me happy. I remember saying things like that. I said, this is not fulfilling me. I remember being on stage the last few times. I was like, where I'm like, I enjoy this, but this is not going to get to the core of my being. I remember saying that, even though I enjoyed it greatly. I loved doing stand-up. But in that moment, I woke up that day. I'm saying, you know what? The search is deeper than that. I need to find whatever it is that is going to fulfill me. And even as I went out through the years, and even after I had the experience, at least at the entry level in 2008, I still wasn't fulfilled. Right, that was a fulfilling experience, but my ego was still seeking something bigger and bigger and bigger. Is only after 2019 I didn't have that desire anymore. So even though I'm still meditating, I still haven't missed a day since then. I still meditate and I'm still doing all my stuff, and I still would like to continue to develop psychologically. Right, I'm not saying that I'm at the highest level of psychological development. I'm only saying I'm at the highest level that I feel in the waking states. But I still have more to go psychologically. But in regards to stand-up, the moment that in that moment I lost all motivation. I knew that it wasn't gonna fulfill me. It wasn't gonna make me happy. But it wasn't anything that deep. It was just, I just don't have the motivation to do it. It's only as years went by where I would say that the veil was lifted, and I start to look at things from what they really were, and start to see the reality of all things. The illusions start to dissipate as it did. That took time. But in that moment, I just knew that I was no longer motivated. So it wasn't anything deep, anything spiritual to that degree. Because some people, when they write about me, they say, Morgan had an awakening that inspired him to whatever. It's just good writing, but that's not what really happened.
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't even have an awakening yet. The awakening didn't happen
Yeah.
until 2008. I stopped doing stand-up in 2006. Officially stopped stand-up in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that took time. But I guess to make a good story, that's what people say. It's like, yeah, after having an awakening, he stopped stand-up and went to pursue spiritual, went on the spiritual pursuit, but that's not what really happened.
Yeah. In good stories, you're
Two
looking
and a
for
half
that
years
one
later,
big moment.
for the one big, yeah, 2.5
Yeah.
years later, I had my first spiritual awakening experience, and that led to a number of other experiences. Man, how many like spiritual awakening experiences, peak experiences, all that until 2019. And even though when people talk about what happened in 2019, they say it's the end. But as I'm telling you here, I've had 3 more after that, plus 200 Samadhi experiences in 2019. So it's not like it's the end, right? But I don't know if I'll ever experience anything to that level again, because it was felt like it was a plateau. But I'm still having experiences.
Yeah. And are you looking to could you imagine yourself doing something similar as standing on a stage making people laugh, but perhaps also have a deeper message along with it to convey to them in the future?
I don't have the motivation to do it.
Okay.
And also I haven't found a way to do it. Because people have brought this up before us, is what if
Right.
you were able to take your comedy and you blend it in with spirituality, but you just take the spirituality and make it humorous?
Yeah.
What's hard for me to do that is comedy is based on things going wrong, right? We're talking about experience where nothing goes wrong, where everything's perfect as it is. So it's very, very difficult to do that. The only thing I can probably talk about is the things that went wrong during the past. But my thing is, who's going to relate to that? Right? I would have to do it for a spiritual audience. People who are on the path. How am I going to build an audience doing that? It can be done, but I just don't have the energy to do that. But I couldn't go to a regular audience and pull this off. At least I don't feel that I could. So my mind is not there, but I'm open to the idea. I'm open to it. If there's a way that I can do this and I feel moved to do it, I would do it. I don't feel moved to do that yet, but a lot of people have brought that up, though. Yeah. What I do find is if I'm having a conversation about spirituality, I can make it humorous. I just don't know if I can take that and make a routine of it on stage and do it from that standpoint. I think that I find that to be very difficult. But at the same time, I don't feel like I need to do it. But if I feel moved to do it, I'll find a way to do it. I feel that would happen.
Yeah. I've had this view on comedy that changed a little. That I wanted to make it a thing, right? A career.
Yeah.
But then now it's more like I see it more as a tool. That the truth is let's say the most important thing, and then the comedy is secondary. That you can teach and be just a funny teacher. I mean, make it humorous.
Just be a funny teacher. Yeah. And that I still do. I'm still a funny teacher. I still when I do my sessions privately with my group sessions, I still add all that stuff in there. But that's the difference between comedy and humor. You can take any regular conversation and make it humorous, and you take any conversation and make it comedy. So it's two different things. So like I'm not under a lot of pressure to when I'm teaching. I'm not under pressure to be funny.
Oh.
So that can come out naturally for me. But if I had to go the other route where I had to write a routine, because comedy, as you know, many comics know that it takes time and work and structuring jokes and all that type of stuff. I was like, how am I going to do that out of my daily spiritual experiences that hardly anyone's ever experienced? That'd be a hard one. I'm sure there's an audience out there for that, but it's like to find an audience, that's also hard. I was like, I'm not willing to do all that work. I just sit here and meditate all day.
Yeah.
And do whatever I can, So, but if you, some of my YouTube stuff, or doing, I do these segments called Enlightened Up, and the comic, I have a sidekick, and he's a comic. He's an amateur comic, Nathan Griffith. Yeah, I bring humor to that. I bring humor to that. But yeah, because this is just us having conversation. I can make that humorous.
Yeah, I
Um,
heard you laughed quite cosmically together, you and Nathan.
we have fun.
And
We have fun. We have fun all the time.
I
He's
saw
also
that
one of the
video.
students in the Ronnie Edwards class. He's one of the students in Ronnie Edwards and Kenny Robinson's class in regards to comedy. So he's the first one who gets the dose of all the psychological aspects of comedy, which I'm sure he doesn't get yet, but he will at some point.
Yeah.
So at least I have someone to share it with Nathan and the other four guys
Mhm.
that are in this group. Yeah. So yeah. Well, we have fun though when we're doing those segments. I just
Yeah.
don't do them often because I'm tied up with all the other work, but I have another segment to air. I just haven't edited it down yet. But once I edit that down, I don't know if it was humorous, but there's things in there that is very, delightful to listen to.
Yeah, and I mean we're gonna wrap up soon. In the end, you can yeah have a chance now to promote that and whatever else. I mean, I'll just
Oh
ask you,
yeah,
where can people find you and your most important work, your link tree?
yeah,
I'll put the link
yeah,
tree in here, by the way. You can
yeah. Put
find,
that in there,
yeah, yeah,
because yeah, I always forget to mention this, but I have a book coming out. I have a book coming out. It's called Bodhi in the Brain. Bodhi in
yes.
the Brain,
Mm,
and that's coming out soon. It should be coming out by this summer. And that's a book about Yinergy. So Yinergy is the program that I created, is the brainwave entrainment program that I created, which I created back in 2010. And thousands of people have used this around the world. And that's available too. It's not official, but it's
mm,
official enough that people can purchase it.
mm.
At least the first level. Second level, well, the second level will be out soon for people who are already doing the first level. So if for people who are interested in that, look me up, and you'll find that site, and you can purchase Yinergy. At least the first level Yinergy purge people can purchase. That's available. Again, I mentioned the book is coming out, and there's also a number of other books that will be coming out as well. So this is the book that will be coming out this year,
Mm.
and I'll have another book coming out next year. I already have about 6, 7 books, the rough draft of them finished, and I'm just working on them slowly as I'm publishing these books. So that would be available. I don't always promote my YouTube channel a lot because it's not really there for 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 um uh, for large audiences. I just do it if I feel the need. If I have that inspiration and Nathan's available, say, hey, let's shoot this, just shoot the shit
Mm.
and put it out there. But it's not anything I really promote much. But you can find and watch all that stuff too.
Yeah, it's
Um,
good to have a YouTube channel so
yeah,
that like a video library, if
yeah, yeah.
especially interested can go there and
You can go
see
there.
more long form content.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but a lot also too. It's on there. I have a lot of literature that's on there of things that I've written in the past, and I've taken them and made them into videos or like whatever things that people
Mm.
can listen to as well. If you want to be inspired by the journey by Tiria Tita, that those segments are called Tiria Speaks. Is that what I called it? I think that's what I call it. Tiria Speaks. So
Mm.
you can listen to those as well. Those are cool, and yeah, and I'm just here every day working with people in my community. I have a group of people, as much as we're doing the comedy classes, but I also have a group
Mm.
of people who I train in regards to reaching these higher states of consciousness, from gross to
Online?
from gross to subtle to non-dual.
Do you have those teachings online? I mean, those classes?
Not online. I do them in person. I also have a WhatsApp group, so I have people on WhatsApp where I share information there. But the rest of the people who I met along the way, whether it's through my work or through other young people who are on that path, and I teach them. I teach them. I train them. It's nothing that I don't have an actual course that's out available to the public or anything like that. It's just people who I train on a and talk to on a daily basis.
Mm, cool.
There's
Yeah.
like a few hundred people who come to me for those services on that level.
Cool.
That's
Yeah.
something I've always been doing since I've been doing since 2008 or at least 2009.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a large group of people who I work with, and a few of those people have also now hit. Only three of those people have also now hit yeah, at least entry level.
Yeah.
Oh
Toria.
yeah,
Experience of Toria. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Maybe not Tiriotita, but
Yeah.
Turia, yeah.
Yeah.
3 or 4 people have done it.
Mm.
One person did it just from reading my text messages, just from reading
Okay.
some
Okay. Yeah.
feed.
Yeah. Mm.
And
Mm.
she
Mm.
opened up.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's 3 or 4 people. Another person opened up while he was in Sri Lanka. He was fasting, was walking down the streets of Sri Lanka, and then he had a burst.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
another
Yeah. That can
person,
happen. That can totally happen if the words strike you.
it
Uh,
strikes you. It strikes you.
hmm hmm Yeah.
All right. So
Thanks
yeah,
a
so
lot.
it's amazing what's been coming out of this, and I
Yeah.
will continue this until the day I die.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. I'll follow. Um, I'll definitely check out your link tree and that program there. Sounds
And
interesting.
I'll send you a copy of Energy. I'll send you first level of Energy just
Nice.
as
Yeah.
an appreciation for everything you've done.
Nice.
So I'll
Yeah.
send that. Well,
Yeah. And that reminded me, I have I've looked into, actually I know one guy who uh who has um who has this level we're talking about in this episode here. I
oh
mean
wow.
Norwegian guy, and he, after I think 25 years of meditation or of seeking, um he used some kind of sound bowl or something like that.
For real.
Yeah, and the mind became really silent, and then pa, and then suffering was gone.
It was gone, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, yeah,
And and then I know that Shinzen Young.
yeah.
I think you're also following his stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I follow
and
his stuff as well. Yeah, I've been following him for years.
yeah.
Yeah, even prior to meeting Steve from Guru Viking.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, because they're
yeah,
connected.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right, right. Yeah. And he's doing some interesting
yeah.
research on
Ultrasound.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, with Jay. Yeah, so
yeah.
Jay and they're working on this device to do with ultrasound, and what I've been hearing about it is very very promising. So I personally can't wait to try it just to see what it actually does. But I would love to
Mm,
try this thing once it's all. I'll even try it now.
yeah,
I'll be one of
yeah.
their subjects that they wanted me. I'll fly down and they can hook me up with whatever they need.
Yeah,
Put this thing in the back of my head and see what happens. I'm willing to do that. So yeah, just to be part of that research. So
yeah. I mean, if he's watching, then yeah, I'll also
I'm in.
volunteer.
I might actually meet you
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, it sounded super interesting when he said that
Very interesting.
it was the most important intervention in his meditation
Yeah,
practice ever.
meditation practice ever.
That
I was
says a
like, wow,
lot.
that says a lot. So I was
Yeah,
like, yeah, you know what? I'll try this.
yeah. Yeah, let's wish for that. Thanks so much for taking the time to do this, Morgan. I
Oh,
look
my
forward
pleasure.
to staying in contact and watch you coming forth. And yeah, check out his
Oh, thank you.
link tree, and his
Yeah,
books.
a book, books, Bodhi in the
Yes.
Brain, and
Mm,
after that, yeah, if I can't list them in order because I'm not sure which one's going to come up next, but
mm.
it'll be one of them. Probably, it'll probably be Swallowing Vedanta Whole, or another one, Playing the Field. There's another one, and another one is called um, what's it called? Seeing Paradise. Can't remember the title, but whatever.
Yeah, you'll see. You know
You'll
his name
see.
now. Yeah. All right. Thanks. Thanks to you, and
Oh, my
thanks
pleasure.
to
Thank
everyone
you.
watching.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for watching.